Hello, 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 everybody. It's so good to be here today. So, today I'm going to share with you four things that helped me heal from my divorce. And basically, I went through a divorce. I feel like the process has been for over maybe 5 years that I was like in the in between stage. Um, Barely separated, and I pretty much didn't know what it is that I could do or needed to do until I became very intentional about it and decided that I needed to get to the healing part. There was a season of my life where I did not want the divorce. I am a Christian, and part of being a Christian is that some of these things, these verses and these things that I used to hear all the time, kind of like were stuck in my mind, and I had to go and do some research and figure out, okay, what is it that the Bible actually says about the topic, and can I continue to be in this situation? So there, what while I was dealing with that season, it was extremely hard to stay and figure it out because in my heart and deeply in my mind, I did not want to. Um, not really disappoint God, but I didn't want to do anything that was outside of His will. Since I was pretty much 17, I have wanted to honor God in every single thing that I do, in everything that I attempt, in every decision that I make. So, because of that, I was very careful in the things that I did. And when I got married, and I think for those of us who are divorced, we don't get married with the idea, oh, I'm going to get a divorce, therefore I'm going to prepare for that. And because of that, we are not pretty much prepared for anything. And I heard Miles Monroe say something once. He said that he's already prepared for his wife to pass away. He's already prepared for his parents to pass away. So he, in his mind, is already rehearsed it because he knows that it's a possibility. And if it can happen, then when it does happen, if they ended up dying together. But if it does happen, then he was ready and prepared for that. But the rest of us don't think to do that. We don't think to say, hey, I'm getting married, but I'm going to also like just prepare myself just in case this thing doesn't work out. We go with high expectations, we go expecting for it to work out, but it doesn't always happen. So during that time of my life, I was pretty much in a depressive state. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know what it is that I could do. I am a therapist by profession, so I was already practicing and helping other people, but I was dealing with this thing in my life that was extremely difficult, and I was also isolated around that time, like people that were supposed to be in my life, people that would usually be a support system for me, um, that they just life happened, and then people were doing their own things, and I found myself, just me and God, just dealing with this and going through it by myself. So the first thing I knew to do was to look for a therapist, and it was an extremely difficult task because as a therapist I know the level of um, care that I provide to people. So I was looking for someone similar. I was looking for a good Christian therapist, but it was so difficult for that to happen because there just wasn't enough resources out there, enough people that could provide what it is that I needed. And eventually I found a therapist that was able to, that I decided to just go along with because the depressive symptoms were so extreme that I pretty much couldn't. I was basically going to church. I was going to work, and then that was it. I was home, and then I was taking care of my kids, and that was my focus around that season. And there wasn't much else that I had the capacity to do. Of course, like I was working in ministry, trying my best to do the things that I have to do because that was my distraction around that time. But it was like when I got home, I focused on taking care of the kids and on taking care of myself. I didn't really do much of that. So finding a therapist, I began to then have a space to work through some of these things. It was difficult at first to open up. It didn't feel like it was helpful at first because my therapist wasn't really used to working with people who's gone through a divorce, but who was going through a divorce. The divorce wasn't finalized yet, but navigating through that and knowing that there's someone that is there that can hear me, that can pretty much understand from a human perspective what it is that I was saying, the things that were hurting at that time. Some people to some a person to pretty much validate those feelings that I had overall, because I'm a feeler. I feel very deeply, and when I do feel, it feels like extreme. So when I work with my clients now, as a therapist, I feel what they feel, and I am able to navigate that. But when I'm going through my own things, it's like times 50, and I feel all of the emotions. Over time, I've learned to navigate them, but that's pretty much how I'm created and how I'm made. So the therapist definitely helped. And the second thing that I pretty much did was that I started to grieve. And grief is can be a very complicated process, and you can think, okay, I'm grieving this, it should feel resolved at a certain point. But it felt at that time, if I'm being honest, that I was bouncing back and forth between all the stages of grief. Sometimes I will be depressed about it. Sometimes I'll be like, okay, God, like if that's what you want, I'm gonna do that. Sometimes I'll be like, I'll be the bargaining, and I was in the bargaining phase for a very long time. Like, God, like you can do this, you can help me, you can heal me, you can heal this marriage, you can put it back together even if it's broken. And I didn't do I didn't do much else. Like there were like for years I bargained and I prayed and I fasted and I said, God, you can do this, you can heal this. And I tend to have strong faith and I tend to believe, okay, God, whatever it is, that if I'm praying about it and I'm fasting, and I remember like the longest fast I did was like over 100 days. I just didn't feel like it was time to end it. And every time I was to end it, I felt like I was supposed to keep going and keep praying. And my main focus around that time was praying for my marriage. So I was in that bargaining phase for a long time. And then I would get to the anger phase where my ex-husband would do something, and then I would feel like, man, like why would you go and do that? Why would you do that? And we're technically not even divorced yet. So I would get angry, and I would act out. I would do certain things that pretty much um, that I would regret later on. Like nothing extreme, but I would say things to people that weren't pretty much nice as I navigated this season. And then eventually I got to the place of acceptance. So when I got to that place, I remember there was one day I was just taking a shower, and it's been around 5 years around at that time. And I remember just standing there and just talking to God, like talking to God about how I felt, talking to God about um my situation. And before that, I was doing research as well. So because I'm like, okay, this is the one verse that people throw out all the time, that okay, this is what it is. God hates divorce, and that's all we focus on. Or the only reason you can get divorced is adultery. Um, and and I just needed to read it for myself, and I needed to get deeper and better understanding on the topic, on what God's heart actually was, as opposed to what I was usually told. So I decided that I was going to do some research, and that helped tremendously in that season. So once I decided that once I did my research, I realized, oh, like God cares more about me, my safety as an individual, than He does with you know keeping this covenant. I learned I the most impactful one was a series from Miles Monroe where he breaks down the topic. So if you can find it, if you're looking for it, you can find it on YouTube. And then I read Tony Evans' book on the topic. I read Miles Monroe's book on the topic, and other articles as well. And that just helped me realize, okay, so at that point, I felt like I want to try. Like I want to figure it out. I want to keep my marriage, because I didn't come into it for it to end. Um, but I remember standing in that shower and God was like, "You need to let it go." And I said, like, let go of what? He said, your marriage. I said, why? He said he doesn't want to. He doesn't want it. Um, and and I remember just standing there, and I feel like it was the right moment because I have been struggling and wrestling with this, right? My ex and I have been going back and forth with this, and we have been pretty much on and off. And it's like one day he wants the relationship, one day he doesn't. But his actions were really showing, hey, I don't want this, but I'm gonna just continue playing this game, that we're playing and see. So at some point, I remember that same year, and I'm just remembering this. That same year, every year, my pastor gives us a verse that we can pretty much use to guide us throughout the year. And I remember that same year was the year that I got a verse in Isaiah 14 where God says, I'm going to deliver you from oppression. And I remember my pastor asked me, like, what verse did you get? And when I read it to him, it was like, what do you mean? What could that have to do with you? Because on the outside, it wasn't clear that this is pretty much what was going on, and what I was going through, and that I was actually in some ways being oppressed. Um, and that year when he told me in the shower, hey, like, you need to let it go, I was like, okay. At this point, he had already served me the divorce papers, and all I had to do was sign them. And after that, I took the papers, I signed them. I think I called him. No, he hadn't given me the papers yet. I'm like, you know what? You can send the papers. I'll sign them. And shortly after, he sent them and I signed them. And that moment was such a heavy but also like really light moment for me, where I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. I don't need to fight for it. I don't need to do any of this at this point. I'm like, okay, God, like whatever you want, um whatever you want, I'm ready to move forward with my life and figure this thing out. And then I think eventually, and then I think at that moment, I just felt also free, free from it. But I knew like God had a plan. Him and I had like a ministry since we got into the relationship that we were supposed to start together. Um, and at that moment, that's the thing that I also grieved. I'm like, oh, that's definitely not going to happen. And we're not going to do this thing that was so exciting, for us to do. So I basically had to let all of it go and say, God, you know what? I trust you. And I know that you're going to lead and guide me in the direction that I'm supposed to go. So from then on, I have been very isolated. I didn't have a lot of people in my corner. Eventually God began to add people, a support system, into my life where I had like other women that I could talk to. And it wasn't many, it was just like three of them that I really got close to and that I really got to know. And that were able to be there, for me in some of the moments. But before then, I think I had one person, and then my pastor's wife that I could have, reached out to if I needed something, or if I needed to process something, and then my therapist. So growing my support system helped me have more space and more people that I can pretty much talk to as I went through this. And honestly, like my heart felt like, okay, we can finally start healing. Because when I was in that in between space, it was like I was stuck. It was like, okay, I'm here in this space, and I don't know if this marriage is gonna succeed, if it's gonna survive, or if it's not, is he gonna change his mind? Is he gonna change his actions, so that we can give this a try, or not. So basically, my heart finally, it felt like it was being poked over and over again, because every single thing he said, he don't want to be in the marriage, but every single thing that he would do, it would trigger me over and over again. So imagine like an open wound that you have, and then every action by that person, because you are in that in between space, every action hurts like hell. It hurts. It's terrible. And you still have those expectations that you have, but at the same time you know that you shouldn't have them. So when I signed those papers, it was almost like my heart got permission to heal. It was almost like my heart was like, oh, finally we can begin to heal. And I got to a point where I was like, I can't control what he does. I can't control who we choose to be with. And that had to be gradual, because I basically didn't know exactly um, how to do it, but I would practice it. And the Holy Spirit was just like really right there with me all the time. Like, I remember a time when there was one person that he was involved with, who did something to me, and I went to to a place where that person was, and I didn't say hello. And I remember the Holy Spirit was like, the Holy Spirit checked me and was like, you are not allowed to not say hello to this person. Go and say hello. So I went and I said hello to the person. And then there was another time, like I said something mean, either about that person or to that person. And then God checked me, and the Holy Spirit was like, don't ever talk to me, don't ever talk about my daughter this way. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it was a real season of stretching for me, a season of developing my relationship with God and becoming just healthier, spiritually altogether. So I had the Holy Spirit right there with me, training me to do things right, from time to time, so that I could be able to not hold on any grudges. So, and that's what that was doing. It was keeping me from holding people in my heart, so that I can be able to love everybody. So if you think about like the verse that says love your enemies, and do good to those who persecute you, that verse, that season of my life, that's the verse that I had to pretty much practice, where the Holy Spirit was challenging me in the most difficult season of my life over and over again. You gotta treat people right, regardless of how they treat you, and you have to represent me in your behavior. And I've told this, like that there was some times where I would be downstairs in my car just crying and asking God, why is He letting me, keeping me in this situation? Why isn't He releasing me to leave this marriage or to do something different? Um, and then the answer was like almost immediately in my mind, He said, go upstairs and go serve your husband. And around the time we didn't get a divorce yet, and we were still living together, not really separated. And I was like, what? Like, you want me to go and serve him right now as I'm crying to you about everything that I'm feeling and the pain and the things that he's doing that are not great for this covenant that we have together. And he was like, yeah, go ahead and serve him. And I pretty much had to go and not look at, hey, like this is what your flesh want to do, this is what you want to do. But I went and I served them, and I stayed in that season for a few years, because I feel like there were things and tests that I needed to pass, right? God was training me through this marriage. He was training me through this marriage to be conformed to His image. He was shaping me to be who He created me to be. and not necessarily who everybody else thought I could be, or who I wanted to be, or what my flesh wanted to do. So that was a real season of refining for me, where I really got close to God and I really got to hear his voice. So every little thing that I would do, and I remember I would just get so upset at God. I'm like, God, like, why is it that you love other people more than me? Why is it that you value them? They can do whatever they want. And I've given my life to God since I was like really giving my life to God. And I made a vow and I said, God, I'm ready to live for you. I don't want to do anything that is against you, because I'm like, I want my life to be purposeful. I want my life to be a life of purpose, and I want to be able to impact people. So I gave him everything, and I gave him my life at 17. I remember I did a fast then, and I just dedicated everything to him. And since then I've been just walking with him and growing and this and that. But this season of my life was a season of refining, and he used this hard season to teach me, hey, like, you have to depend on me, and you have to trust me, and your worth is not in this person, your worth is in me. You need to pretty much know that you are loved. And I didn't feel loved around that time by my husband, because we were going through a lot, and I don't think there was space for love with all of this chaos that was happening between us. So God pretty much was saying to me over and over again how he felt about me. And it took me years to learn that. So all those classes that he put me through were to test, okay, where are you with your faithfulness towards me? Are you going to listen to me in the most difficult time? Are you going to do the things that I'm calling you to do? Or are you going to just wait and are you just going to do whatever it is that your flesh wants to do? Because my flesh did want to do some crazy things. And usually it's my mouth. Like, I would say things to people that can just pierce their souls, and I knew exactly what to say, what would tick them, and I would be able to get under their skin. And God was training me. He was training my mouth to the point where one year he was like, you need to stop talking so much. Like, you need to stop using your mouth for that. So I, around that same time, my church was reading a book, Taming Your Tongue, and that helped tremendously for me to deal with myself. So I would say, yes, my divorce has been difficult, but it has been a time of development for me spiritually, so that I could become the person that I need to become, so that God can use me in the capacity that he wants to use me. So counseling was one of my things. I had to learn what my my wrongs were, the things that I did that were not great, the things that I did that contributed to the place where we were. Um, and then I also found community, people who understood what it is that I was going through and could support me, and I supported them. And then I found things that I enjoyed, and I eventually took care of myself, because self-care was a real challenge for me around that time, especially being depressed. So I learned to take care of myself, and I learned to just be just fully present with myself and sit with myself. And journaling is, I journaled a lot in that season as well, to get those difficult, heavy thoughts out, so that I wouldn't be holding on to them all the time. So these are the main four things that I did to heal, and that helped me. But mostly, I would say, just staying connected to God and just following his leading. Because after my heart was free to heal, he began to show me different things through dreams, of what I should do, or the areas of my life that I needed to focus on, what the kids needed, what he was still out there doing. Like God showed me all of it, so that the moments where he would come back and kind of like just want to just smooth his way in into the house, like I would be like, nope, like because I know exactly, like God was showing me exactly what He was doing out there, and I couldn't pretty much trust it. So, if you are on your journey, if you are dealing with a divorce, your story is not gonna sound like mine, and but I am determined now. Now I'm so much different. I it's been the divorce was finalized in 2022 or 2021, and now it's 2024. I have continued with my therapy to talking to therapists so that I can heal. I um, I am now at a stage where I have a space where I am helping other women that are going through the same thing, and they are able so that they can be able to heal. And it took me so long to get to my healing, and it doesn't have to be the case for some other people. And the worst thing that I endured during that time was isolation. Going through something hard, you can tolerate it, but going something hard through something hard by yourself can be the most difficult thing, because if there's no one to pretty much just talk to you and be there for you. So I'm creating community and space for women to be able to heal from the pain of separation and the pain of divorce, so that they can be the best version of themselves. I'm at a point now where I'm living in purpose and on purpose. Like everything that I do, I started my business, NYC Healing Center. I I'm now I started the second business earlier this year, where it's a coaching space for women to heal from divorce. So it's like I'm living and I'm truly happy where I am, and I don't feel broken. I feel like a whole person all to myself. I feel confident. I can I was so shy before. I wasn't able to um just even stand in front of a camera. Now I'm in places speaking, I'm in places preaching, I'm in places just talking, and now I'm just starting out telling my story. So it's like God took everything, and I feel like nothing is wasted. Like even those prayers that I prayed and for my marriage, I'm currently in a different relationship, and I'm seeing God really, He listened to me when I prayed those prayers and I fasted, and everything that I prayed for is in this new man. And it's just like so amazing to see what God can do. And I know that some of you are still in that space where you're like, all right, like, mm, divorce is not permitted. Or if you get divorced, you can't remarry. But I would encourage you to go do the research for yourself. I'll use this channel to do a little bit more teaching on that based on what I've been learning and based on my own experience with God. But it's important that you find it out for yourself, and allow Holy Spirit to just guide you and teach you through your own journey. So yeah, that is my story. That is how the healing has been. I feel like right now there are still little things that still pop up, but right now I have a wonderful co-parenting relationship with my ex-husband, where it's kids focused. We'll focus on the children and what they need. And we neither of us are interested in a relationship with one another. And we've decided to move forward. So there's no drama. We just get together and focus on what they need, so that we can be able to take care of them, so that they can get equal amounts of mom and dad at the same time. And I feel like that is such a gift from God, because like I'm like, God, that's something I don't want. I don't want my kids to pay the price of the things that him and I did or didn't do. So I feel like it was the greatest gift that God could have given me overall. So if you are going through this, put in the comments and let me know what it is that you are dealing with. Also, on this week and next week, I am hosting a free masterclass for women who are going through a divorce or separation, where it's called Divorce Detox Masterclass. And the information is in the description below, and you can pretty much just find information on how to register for that. And also every Friday, I'm going to post um, an interview where I'm creating a space called Transformance Diaries, where I invite different people to share their stories of transformation, because sometimes somebody's story can help us feel more human and can help us navigate through our own situations. So I hope you can resonate with some of those. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe and click the bell so you can get notifications every time I post new content. So thank you for being with me today and for listening to my story, my divorce story, my journey, and what I did to pretty much heal myself so now I can be at a point where I can heal other people. Well, it was nice being here. Bye.